Good evening and welcome to CYC News for the 13th of January 2019 and the 5th of October 17:35 AM. I'm Bishoy Basilius. In today's headlines, a politically charged Christmas for Orthodox churches in Ukraine and Russia. ISIS is far from being defeated as a terrorist group or ideology. Syria withdrawal hinges on safety of Kurds, says Bolton, contradicting Trump. Trump administration brushes EU with diplomatic downgrade. Netanyahu demands right to confront witnesses over claims of corruption. ISIS missile injures UK special forces in Syria. New York in the middle of largest measles outbreak in state's recent history. And Egypt beats South Africa to host 2019 Africa Cup of Nations. But first, last Monday marked an important day for many Orthodox Christians worldwide. Those that follow the old Julian calendar celebrate the Feast of the Nativity of Jesus Christ on January 7. However, this Christmas was a politically charged one for both Russia and Ukraine. On Saturday, January 5, Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople signed a decree called a tomos that granted independence to the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. The decree furthers a push to recognize the establishment of an independent Orthodox Church in the country. In a series of statements on Twitter, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko said it was a symbolic victory, and January 7 marked the first Christmas for the autocephalous Orthodox Church of Ukraine, with Metropolitan Epiphany as its head. He said, "We are celebrating the bright day of the Nativity of Christ in the autocephalous Orthodox Church of Ukraine for the first time. For the first time, her primate, his Beatitude Epiphany, stood together yesterday with the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew and received the tomos from his hands as a sign of recognition of the independence of our Ukrainian Church." The change to independence revoked an agreement dating back to 1686 that granted the Patriarch in Moscow authority over Ukrainian churches. And the move has stoked major tensions between Moscow and Kiev. Russian President Vladimir Putin called a meeting of his Security Council on the matter, and the Russian Orthodox Church broke ties with the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople. In his annual press conference in late December, Putin said, "I am mostly concerned about the likelihood that property redistribution will follow. This is already happening. This redistribution could turn into a heavy dispute, if not bloodshed. God forbid." To the United States now, where on December 19, President Trump declared, "We have defeated ISIS in Syria, my only reason for being there during the Trump presidency." In a video that same day, he said US troops there are all coming back and they're coming back now. On January 7, the president revised now to leaving at a proper pace while at the same time continuing to fight ISIS, though he claimed it was no different from what he had said before. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said on Monday, "There is no change in our commitment to the defeat of the caliphate or of ISIS globally." He has also maintained that it can be done without the 2,000 US troops that currently support the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces in northeast Syria. For its part, the US Defense Department says the withdrawal is conditions-based and not subject to an arbitrary timeline. So has ISIS been defeated or not? Right now, it's a shadow of what it was at the peak of the self-declared caliphate when it controlled territory the size of Hungary. But it is far from vanquished either as a fighting force or an ideology. Beyond Syria, there are signs that it is regenerating in Iraq. A UN report in August last year estimated that some 20 to 30,000 ISIS fighters were still at large in the two countries. The United States will pull out of Syria only with assurances Turkey will not attack Kurdish allies there, National Security Advisor John Bolton told journalists last Sunday, according to reports. The added condition to the US's withdrawal of troops contradicts President Donald Trump's announcement via Twitter last month. The US troops would withdraw from the country now, as he declared that ISIS had been defeated. In a video posted to Twitter, Trump said, "So our boys, our young women, our men, they're all coming back and they're coming back now. We won and that's the way we want it." Since his initial announcement, Trump has extended his original 30-day timeline to withdraw troops to 4 months. And last Sunday, he told reporters, "I never said we're doing it quickly, but we're decimating ISIS." On Monday, Trump tweeted, The failing New York Times has knowingly written a very inaccurate story on my intentions on Syria. No different from my original statements, we will be leaving at a proper pace while at the same time continuing to fight ISIS and doing all else that is prudent and necessary. Bolton made the remarks in Jerusalem on a 4-day trip to Israel and Turkey. The White House announced last month that ISIS had been defeated in Syria and the United States would withdraw 2,000 troops from the war-stricken nation. Now, ambassadors lining up to pay their respects at President George H.W. Bush's funeral knew the routine. They would be called in order of seniority, a well-established system in which everyone knew where they belonged. That is, until they didn't. The European Union's ambassador to the US, David O'Sullivan, normally among the first 30 foreign envoys to be seated, watched on as almost every other ambassador to the US took a seat, leaving him among the last to be called. That, according to an EU official, was how the 28-member bloc learned that the Trump administration had downgraded its diplomatic status from a state to an international organization. The shift, a reversal of an Obama administration decision in 2016, has riled Brussels, deepening a growing rift and appalling diplomats in Washington who decreed the move as amateur and unprofessional. To Israel now, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has doubled down on his complaints of unfair treatment at the hands of his opponents by demanding the right to confront the men who have turned state's witness against him in 3 corruption investigations. Addressing the nation last Monday in what was billed ahead of time as a dramatic announcement, Netanyahu said the face-to-face meetings should happen on live TV so that the Israeli public could see and hear him challenge all accusations against him. Netanyahu said he had already twice requested the opportunity to question the 3 state's witnesses, but had been rebuffed on both occasions by the investigators. Over the course of the police investigations, 3 former close confidants of Netanyahu, Ari Haro, Shlomo Filber, and Nir Hafetz, have turned against him. All 3 investigations have been handed over to the Attorney General, who will make the final decision over whether to indict Netanyahu. Police have said there is sufficient evidence to charge the Prime Minister with fraud, bribery, and breach of trust. Netanyahu has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, but the investigations have still cast a shadow over the last 2 years of his premiership, as well as being a central issue in the unfolding general election campaign. 2 members of British Special Forces have been wounded in an attack by ISIS fighters in Syria, according to Kurdistan's Rudan news agency. The UK's Ministry of Defence said it would not comment on Special Forces, but did not deny the media reports. The soldiers were hit by an ISIS missile attack on a Syrian Democratic Forces base in the East Syrian town of Shafa de el-Zohar, where a Kurdish fighter was killed in the attack. The news agency quoted an SDF official as saying, "Due to a smart missile attack by ISIS, a fighter of the YPG was killed and another wounded, in addition to 2 British soldiers. The 2 British soldiers are in a stable condition," the official reported. The attack comes just 4 weeks after US President Donald Trump declared the terror group defeated and that he had planned to withdraw 2,000 US troops from the war-torn country. In health news, a measles outbreak in New York has been called the largest in the state's recent history, and it's occurring at a time when there have been spikes in measles cases globally. According to numbers provided by the New York State and City Health Departments last Tuesday, since the outbreak emerged in September, measles has been diagnosed in at least 112 people across Rockland and Orange counties, and in at least 55 people in New York City. Dr. Howard Zucker, the State Commission of Health, believes it is the largest in New York's recent history. He said, "If you go back many decades ago, when we weren't vaccinating, of course there were probably more outbreaks. But in my memory, I don't know of a measles outbreak that was this significant. We have immunized 13,000 children since this outbreak has begun." According to the New York City Health Department, the outbreak, which emerged after some children were infected on a visit to Israel in September, has particularly affected Orthodox Jewish communities. And in sport, 7-time champions Egypt will host this year's Africa Cup of Nations. Egypt, the most successful country in the tournament's history, beat South Africa, the only other nation to submit a formal bid, by 16 votes to 1 at the Confederation of African Football's Executive Committee last Tuesday. The country has just 6 months to prepare for the 24-team tournament after the original host, Cameroon, was in November stripped of the right to hold the event because of slow preparations. The Cup of Nations will take place from June 15 to July 13, and Egypt is hosting the competition for a 5th time, having last done so in 2006. Cameroon has been offered the chance to stage the finals in 2 years' time, meaning the original hosts for the 2021 and 2023 have been asked to delay their tournaments. While Guinea has agreed to move its staging of the event from 2023 to 2025, Ivory Coast, which was set to host in 2021, has appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. And that's all for CYC News. A reminder that you can watch this news bulletin again throughout the week on YouTube. I'm Bishoy Basilius from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia. Have a good night.